The Australian Financial Review.
If I hear any of our managers talking about the same individual 3 times, it's now the manager who's the problem. And I'll call them out. Hang on, you've talked about this person, this is the 3rd time. What are you doing about it? Because clearly there's a problem and you've now said it 3 times. You are now the problem manager.
Hi, I'm Sally Patton, the editor of Boss from the Australian Financial Review. And welcome to 15 Minutes with the Boss, a podcast about success and failure and everything in between. And along the way, we're hoping to get some really great advice from our leaders. My guest today is Paul Hitchcock, the Chief Executive of Patties Food Group. Hi, Paul. How are you?
Hi, Sally.
Thank you so much for coming in. Paul, as I said, you're the Chief Executive of Patties Food Group, which makes 4 and 20 pies, Nana's and Herbert Adams pies, as well as Legos and Lean Cuisine, among lots of other brands. You have annual sales of $850 million, and apparently you sold 600 million pies, sausage rolls and party pies in the past 12 months. You have 1,800 employees, and my fun fact is that at an AFL Grand Final at the MCG, you can expect to sell 30,000 pies. So actually, just on that, are you a party pie guy or a sausage roll guy?
I'm both.
Both?
I love them both. But we have party pies at work in our reception area, and Mary, our receptionist, fills the pie warmer every morning with little party pies. So between meetings, I often sneak a party pie in the morning or the afternoon and at lunchtime.
Ah, do you? So how many would you have a day?
Oh, look, I try not to have more than 3.
I would find that really, really hard if I was working in an office where they were piping hot, I assume, party pies and sausage rolls on tap.
Yes, it's all for quality control, of course, Sally.
Of course it is, I can imagine. Now, we don't have much time. Let's start the clock. My first question is about your morning routine. What time do you get up? What happens?
Well, it varies on the day. So I live in Sydney but work in Melbourne. So I travel every week. We have 7 factories, so I'm quite often travelling there. So if I'm around home or in the hotel in Melbourne, it's 6 a.m. I get up. I'm normally at the office between 7:30. Sometimes I walk in the mornings. Sometimes I exercise in the evening. In the weekends, I'm always up early for a hike or a long walk, or a bike ride. So I like to keep active.
Okay, my next question is about a pivotal moment in your career. Was there a project that you worked on or a promotion that you were given that somehow changed the whole trajectory of what you were doing?
Early 2000s, I was working for Goodman Fielder and I was the sales director of the commercial division.
And Goodman Fielder is?
At that stage, it was a publicly listed food company. Sales were over $2 billion back then, and we were on the stock market. We were taken over by a New Zealand billionaire, Graham Hart. At the time, it was a $2 billion takeover, and I had a couple of coffees with him as part of his DD when he took over the business. And one Friday afternoon, he called me and said, "Paul, we're restructuring the company. I'd like you to run the commercial division and take on all the factories. Are you up for that?" And I said, "Yes, let me tell you the rest. So your boss has just left the building. His direct reports, your peers. If you want any of them, there's 7 of them. If you want any of them, please tell me Monday. Think about your structure over the weekend. Take me through it Monday morning and we'll announce the organisation Tuesday."
Right. And you had no idea that your boss had left the building or was about to leave the building?
I was in a meeting with him not 30 minutes before, and he gave me a wave I was in another meeting. He gave us a wave as he walked out the door. And I wondered why he was waving. He just had the call. So then on the Monday, I took Graham through my structure of my division. And bear in mind, I had never run factories before, but I knew someone that had. So, and I was picking my team. He agreed with my structure, my people, not that he knew them. Had faith in me and the team, and we restructured this $2.5 billion business over the weekend, myself and 2 of the other who became divisional MDs as well. So,
and what did you learn from that process about structuring teams and how to take on a much bigger role at the drop of a hat?
Well, first thing I learned was when you're having a casual coffee with someone, don't assume it's a casual coffee. Clearly it was a job interview, and I just was honest about what I thought. He asked me, did we have too many meetings? Was our new product development process fast enough? There were a whole lot of things, and I just answered them honestly. I didn't try and overthink it and say, are these politically correct? Is this what he wanted to hear? I just said what I thought. Fortunately, that helped me get the job. So that's the first thing. And the other thing I learned, if you're going to make change, make it quickly. We restructured. We didn't mess around. We changed people very, very quickly. And we got the business focused on our customers and growing the business without an axe hanging over people's head. Because quite often when businesses announce a corporate restructure, a strategy review, and all will be revealed in 3 months, that is the worst thing you can do to people. It's unkind to the individuals, and they take their focus off the business and they start focusing on themselves because everybody's got, bills to pay, mortgages, family. So it's totally understandable. If you're going to make change, do it quick.
And how did that whole process really change your career?
Well, he gave me the opportunity to run a business. Up until that, I'd worked for a number of corporates, and I perhaps didn't fit the mold. I was probably a little rough around the edges. I was a bit disappointed in the businesses I worked for, that I hadn't been given the chance to be a general manager. And I think he saw something, gave me the opportunity. I grasped it with both hands. From that, I became a public company CEO after that, and I've been in general management probably for the last 25 years. So he gave me a chance when a lot of the corporates wouldn't, and I probably wasn't ready. I was surprised as hell that he called me, but I just took the opportunity with both hands and never looked back.
Fantastic. Okay, Paul, my next question is, what's the best piece of career advice you've ever been given?
Make the tough people calls. People don't make the tough people calls. There may be people who are underperforming, people that are just in the wrong job. The business may have outgrown them, and loyalty sometimes and procrastination and avoiding conflict is what puts a lot of people off. And I've been guilty of that too. When I took on my first public company roles, a company called Corporate Express, I didn't know anything about the industry. It was all new to me. I had my own board. I was appointed by a great chairman, and I came into the business and I looked at my team and I figured that they must be good because they'd been in the business a long time, and two of them in particular who were internal candidates for the job, and I was an external, who I thought, well, these guys will really support me. And I took a year and I let them go. And it was probably the best thing for everybody. We just mutually agreed, and I took too long.
So I think a lot of people would say that the reason that they don't want to make those tough people decisions is because it's hard to have that conversation. There is loyalty and there are all sorts of other emotions wrapped up in that. How do you go about having the conversation?
I think you've got to back yourself, and nothing's black and white. When I joined Patties, within the first 2 days, by the end of the second day, I knew who was in, who was out, and who was in the wrong job. And I had 7 direct reports. Of that, 5 of them I let go within the first 3 months, and the other 2 I put into other jobs. And I have a rule in our business. If I hear any of our managers talking about the same individual 3 times, it's now the manager who's the problem. And I'll call them out. Hang on, you've talked about this person. This is the 3rd time. What are you doing about it? You are now the problem manager.
Why 3?
Well, look, the first time someone might say to me, and we do it when we're doing talent reviews, look, I'm just not sure. But look, it's been tough, and there've been some issues in their team. So I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. The second time, might be a little time later, they talk about, look, well, I'm working on them. They still haven't quite got there, but gee, they've improved a little bit. The third time I'm going, okay, hello, come on. This is enough time. Either you're the problem or they're the problem, right? If they're the problem, do something about it. Or if you're not going to do something about it, then you're the problem and stop whinging.
I love that rule. That's really good.
In our business, we give feedback. We take feedback. People give me feedback. We try and encourage everybody to listen. So I tend to not tell my team to hire or fire someone. And 99% of the time, whoever my direct report's preferred candidate is to join our business, I will sign off on.
So terminating people is a hard conversation. Do you have tips for that? Is there a certain way that you structure that conversation when someone is underperforming and they have to go?
Normally, if you're doing it fairly, you've had conversations and then you give them the opportunity. So when you meet them the second time, it's not a complete surprise. You're not just saying, oh, hang on, here's the door, see you later. And they go, what's this all about? But being honest with yourself, can they make it? And if I think the person can get there, I will really work my butt off to try and make them successful. But I make the call early, and if I don't think they can do it, that's it. Better to make the call early and move on.
Okay, Paul, on that note, we're going to take a short break, but don't go away. We're going to come back and open the chatterbox.
Thanks. Looking forward to it, Sally.
Welcome back to 15 Minutes with the Boss. I'm here with Paul Hitchcock, the Chief Executive of Patties Food Group. Now, Paul, this is our section called the Chatterbox. In front of you is this lovely shiny brown box, inside which are about 15 questions. I'm going to ask you to pick out some and we'll get going with some more Q&A.
Okay.
In your experience, what is the best way to get a promotion? Like if you're trying to move up the company ladder, what's the best way to do that, to get noticed?
Just work hard. Don't put on a show. Just do the best you can. Don't try and brown nose, think you're talking to the right people. Just put your head down, work hard. You will get noticed. And I look for people that have got authentic, right attitude, work hard. The work ethics are big. It's something I look for.
Actually, and just on that, do you also look for people who will challenge you or challenge your ideas?
Absolutely. I mean, the last thing I want is a whole bunch of yes people in my company. I want people with diversity of thought, diversity of culture. I want people to be challenging us as a business and ask those questions and not be afraid to stand alone when there's groupthink going on and have a view to the contrary. I really like that. I encourage it.
I love that. Have another fish in the box.
Gee,
Thank you.
I'd like to get a peek before you get them.
I'm afraid that's illegal in this game. That's illegal. When was the last time you gave up doing something or had to quit doing something because it wasn't working?
I think with our manufacturing, what I've learned with our business, we're really good at making things, and there's a couple of times where we've gone offshore to import products. Customers were telling us they wanted these premium sweets, these cakes. So we found somewhere in Italy that would make these cakes, and I went and tasted all these cakes with my marketing and head of sales, and they fed us, and we love these. Will work in Australia. So we came up with a brand new brand. We brought container loads of these things across. Dead flop. We lost a lot of money. And, I just learnt, first of all, when it comes to stakeholders, whether it's your customers or others, where it's not their money, they'll say anything because it's not their money.
So if they're just answering a survey or if they're in a focus group, they'll say what they like, but they may not actually put their money where their mouth is.
That's right. If there's nothing at risk for them, they'll give us our opinion. New brands is really, really hard. Bringing products in from the other side of the world in container loads in a category that we weren't that familiar with was a problem. And so, in the end of the day, we just came back to, let's make the products ourselves, shorter supply chains, and focus on our brands and really try and grow those brands, because starting a new brand is really, really tough, and we're better to put our energy in focusing on the core than it is to go and do the shiny new thing. And whilst these cakes tasted great, we burned a lot of cash.
And how long did it take you before you realised that this was not going to work and you quit the project?
About 9 months. I think we knew after a month. And we put the patient on life support. We tried everything. We promoted. We did everything. And in the end, it was like, no, we just have to make the call, cut, delete, let's move on.
So if that ever happened again, you would make the call pretty quickly?
I think the next time, and we've done a few things like this, is just try and manage the risk and think about, well, what if this doesn't work? We were so convinced of eating these products, right? So 3 men eating cakes. Oh, gee, what could go wrong there? We thought that Australians would eat these products, and they were good tasting products, but for the price, and we didn't get the best positioning in store. Perhaps our execution wasn't as good as it should be. But we should have thought, well, what if this goes right? What if the consumers, have we got the right price point? Should we just do a small trial? Should we just pick a small retail, bring some of the products and do a market trial? Yes, that's what we should have done. No, we wanted to do a big bang national launch.
So do you also think that if you had more diversity in that team, you might have worked it out sooner?
We were 3 like-minded people, and we'll quite often do that in our teams. We'll say we'll want one person to have a contrary view, because groupthink takes over. And probably what we needed was someone to say, yeah, but what if it doesn't work? What if the price is too high? What if the customers don't give it the best location? What if Aussies don't like it? What if? And so now in our meetings, that's why we'll always have someone who will take a contrary view. What could go wrong here? And it challenges us. And if we can answer all the questions, or at least have a plan to manage it, then we'll do it. Not everything's going to work. When you're trying new things, you've got to accept there's some failures. And that's okay. We want failures because you'll find the good ones. But be considered, planned, and think about what could go wrong and have plans for that.
Very good advice. I love that lesson. Okay, have a fish in the box. Thank you. What's the piece of advice that you would give your younger self?
Have more confidence.
So at one point, did you lack a lot of confidence?
Yes.
Until about what age?
Probably about 40.
Okay, that's quite a while.
Yeah. I probably didn't think I was good enough.
So that's interesting. So what, at around the age of 40, made that switch for you, where you went from being not confident to being confident that you could do your job?
I think it was getting the opportunity at Goodman Fielder with Graham Hart. I'm going, hang on, he clearly seen something here. You know, somebody giving me a break. And when I came, and I've sort of continued to grow, and when I came into Patties, I absolutely had no doubt what I was going to do with that company. I had no doubt what I was going to do with the team. I had no doubt that we could be $1 billion company. But if you'd asked me in my early days, it's like, oh, gee, I'm not sure. Leads to procrastination. You start doubting yourself on decisions. You know, where I grew up in New Zealand in a very poor part of town. My father was a motor mechanic, you know, and he's a big drinker. Probably most of the time as I knew my father, he'd been drinking. My mother worked in a shoe factory. I sort of grew up in that environment. You sort of don't know what's possible. And as you mature, as you move in other circles, you see, oh, wow, I can do this. And so I think it just sort of evolves over time. I don't think there was one particular moment.
As you say, had you had your time over again, you would have tried to feel more confident from an earlier age.
Yes, back myself.
Thank you. Paul, on that note, you have passed with flying colours the Chatterbox section, and I've now got one final question, which is, if you weren't the chief executive of Patties Food Group, what would you be doing?
I would be on boards.
Would you do listed boards or unlisted?
Both. If I do unlisted boards, it'll be businesses that I can put some money into because I do want to make a difference. I would be spending some time coaching CEOs. I've learned a bit over the years, and I think that I could help others. Mm-hmm. I'd probably do a bit of coaching of sports teams. A few years ago, I did coaching of touch rugby at Roseville College. I love that. I love to learn guitar.
Okay. Have you ever played the guitar?
Never, but I'm on TikTok. I quite like the pieces on there around the guitar. So I'll probably wait until the executive full-time gig's finished, but I'd love to learn the guitar.
And that is our time up. Paul, thank you so much for coming in and chatting to me today. I really love your advice about making the tough people calls early on and the rule of 3 when you're managing people. If you've mentioned somebody 3 times in a negative light, it's probably time to fix that problem, whoever the problem might be. I like the way that in the meetings you always make sure that you've now got a contrary view, so there's always someone playing the devil's advocate. And I wish you all the luck with your future TikTok and guitar playing career. And on that note, thank you so much for allowing us to spend 15 minutes with the boss. It's been an absolute delight.
Thank you, Sally. Thank you very much.
And thank you to everyone for listening. If you like the podcast and you want to hear more, consider sharing the podcast or writing a review, as it helps us to reach more people. And follow us wherever you get your podcasts. At the Financial Review, we investigate the big stories about markets, business and power. For more, go to afr.com and you can subscribe to the Financial Review, the daily habit of successful people, at afr.com/subscribe. This podcast was hosted by me, Sally Patton, produced and edited by Mandy Coulin. Head of audio is Alex Gower and our executive producer is Fiona Buffini.
The Australian Financial Review.